All right.
Welcome back to OFP.
Happy Thanksgiving, guys. Merry Christmas. Hope you enjoyed the first episode. Some people seem to, and some people did not seem to. But that's okay. Everybody's open to their own opinion.
What's one thing you're thankful for?
I am thankful for my family, and I'm thankful for the life I have.
Big family. That's exactly what I was about to say. You know, we out here thankful for the family, thankful for all the good food we ate and the good food we're still going to eat for Friendsgiving.
Yeah. We just had a Thanksgiving shortly before this podcast, and we're going to have a Friendsgiving soon, and Christmas is coming up for everybody.
This will literally be my fourth Thanksgiving I've been to. It's been a good year.
Oh boy.
I had leftovers.
Do we have some crazy shit to talk about tonight, guys?
OFP's about to get wild. I like that term, OFP.
Yes.
It just sounds so good.
So, welcome to...
Let me get a cheers. Let me get a cheers
yes,
before we
cheers
start.
to the homies and to the audience. Thank you, guys.
Hallelujah, holla back.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays. Speaking of Christmas, first of all, before we get into all that crazy stuff, I'd like to say welcome back to our final podcast. It's our final podcast because we don't know which podcast will ever be our last.
Insert air horns here.
I'd also like to go ahead and say that me and Kyler are just two regular guys. We are not professionals on any of the subject matter that we're talking about. We're just passionate individuals who love research.
I went to college for something I don't even like.
On these subjects we're talking about,
we're just people.
Yeah,
we're just humans.
We're just trying to be open-minded and have a fun discussion. We are not professionals. We encourage you guys to do your own research, but we also do our best to make sure that all of the information we're giving you is as factual as possible. If we're stating an opinion, we'll try and state it as such an opinion.
Try to keep it as updated and as factual as we humanly can.
Now, with all of that disclaimer bullshit out of the way, we have to do that because we got some angry people with us last time.
Some Todd out there in the comments.
To get that out of the way, let's say cheers, Mardi Gras, Happy New Year's, Merry Christmas, and let's talk about Christmas. You know, the celebration of Jesus Christ. You know, everybody knows Jesus Christ was famous for wearing a red suit and jumping down chimneys.
He had a huge white beard.
Yeah, everybody knows that. Wait a minute. That has nothing to do with the birth of Jesus Christ. Why do we celebrate Santa Claus during Christmas? And where did it all come from? What's the origin of Christmas? That's what we're going to start this podcast tonight in light of the holidays coming up soon. So I'm going to go ahead and start it off. I did a lot of research the other night, guys, and I made sure all of my sources were peer-reviewed. Yeah.
That's your notes?
Here's the notes I've made, guys. No, hey, you know, some of us, we got children, and we know. Kyler's a dad, I'm a dad. Let's talk about the old Saint Nick, which is actually the first original origin of Santa Claus. But we're not talking about the origin of Santa Claus. We're talking about the origin of Christmas. The celebration, the feast, the holiday, right? So it is actually extremely old. And like I said, the Christmas story, believe it or not, and I'm sure there will be a lot of people who disagree with me, a lot of very radical Christians. And I consider myself a Christian, guys, but, you know, you can go too far on any belief, right? There needs to be a balance, and you need to humble yourself and be open-minded to everyone's opinions and beliefs.
And not asking kids if they can see God through the hole in their ear.
So I'm going to tell you the origin of Christmas based on the peer-reviewed and verified sources that I've found, which I will put a lot of them in the comment section this time. I'm sure it's all up for debate, but here it goes. So the earliest semblances we see of Christmas occurring during Christmas, you know, the Christmas dates, right? The 25th, the 21st, that kind of stuff like that. Is a Roman paganistic holiday known as Saturnalia, where they would celebrate their dedication.
A Saturn worship thing.
Yes. They would celebrate their dedication to the temple of Saturn.
Oh my God.
which was their god of harvest and cultivation, right? So it was a time where slaves, the Roman slaves, would get to be free. And even in some occurrences, the Roman slave masters would act as slaves and serve their slaves. The role reversal, right? Things were turned up on their head. There was feasts, exchanging of gifts, decoration of trees outside with lights, because one of the main themes was lights, and that's where a lot of the decorating the tree comes from. They would, and also the gift exchange, of course. They thought that exchanging gifts would secure them a good harvest because it would please their god Saturn. So Saturnalia is one of the oldest resemblances of, or the oldest semblances of Christmas that we've seen, except even Saturnalia is based off an even older festival and tradition known as Cronia, which is the Greek equivalent of Saturnalia. They worshipped the Greek equivalent god of Saturn, which is Kronos.
So it's kind of like how their gods all line up, but they have different names.
Exactly, right. The only difference is that Cronia was celebrated during the summer solstice, not the winter solstice, for some reason. I didn't look too much into that, right? My main focus...
Did you see anything in there about the Saturn and Satan worship being intertwined at all?
No, and I don't think they considered Satan Saturn. I think that's just kind of lumped in by... I don't know.
People nowadays or something.
Yeah, like
I was just wondering. I've heard those things being linked. That's why I asked.
The names are similar
from some pagan shit, regardless.
But he was like the son. Saturn is the son of, or the father of Odin, or something. I don't know exactly, but that's probably completely wrong. I probably butchered that. The point is that the Greek mythology equivalent of Saturn was Kronos. So the Romans started basing their celebration off that celebration, kind of the same traditions, but they did it during the winter solstice around December 21st, which was their winter solstice. Now let's see where it goes from there, because this is, like I said, it gets confusing. So later on,
sponsor me, y'all.
Later on, separate from Saturnalia, was this bishop, right? This is a separate story. I have to take you to a separate place.
Is the bishop like one of the people that's under the Pope?
It's just like a priest, like a Catholic.
Higher up in the church.
Yeah, it's like a Catholic priest or something.
I went to a non-denominational, so I don't. I've been to a non-denominational basically my whole childhood. And then I've been to a mosque a few times, and that one was surprisingly peaceful.
Let me try and verify the dates too for these things. I need to look at when Saturnalia was being celebrated.
Let us know in the comments if you want a question everything t-shirt.
Saturnalia was occurring long before St. Nicholas's days. St. Nicholas, which is where Santa Claus was originally based off of, was a bishop saint, the patron saint of children. He got that name from a story of where he resurrected 3 children from the dead. So that's why he got that name. He was also the patron saint of sailors for some reason, but I didn't look into why he was for that. But the story goes, he was a very special man. That's not where he got the whole Father Christmas, St. Nicholas ties to Christmas, though. He was a very, very good man, known for healing. One day, a man was praying in his home that God would help him earn money, earn finances, so that he could afford his daughter's dowries, so that he didn't have to sell them into slavery. Because his oldest daughter requested that she be sold into slavery so her younger sisters could get married. The father refused to sell his daughters into slavery and instead prayed to God that God would send somebody or something to help him. And just walking by coincidentally, St. Nicholas heard this man praying out of his window, and he threw a bag of coins that he had on him through a high window in this man's house. So that is where the legends of St. Nicholas's generosity and gift giving started. Eventually, when St. Nicholas died, they created a holiday for him known as St. Nicholas's Day, where they would celebrate his generosity and works for the church. Okay, so that is the original semblance of actual Christmas. Saturnalia was not like Christmas; it was its own thing. The first semblances of real Christmas was St. Nicholas's Day. That's where we get Santa from.
Yeah.
Eventually, though, these things combine into one, and I'll get into that. So somewhere between St. Nicholas's Day, which was around 300 AD, and the 8th and 9th centuries, which was like 800, the 800s. So a 500-year gap. The Dutch started acquiring very strange and unique customs that went along with St. Nicholas's Day. All of a sudden, stories of St. Nicholas throwing gifts down chimneys that would land in the stockings for the children hanging on the fireplace. But already there's something that doesn't make sense there. You wouldn't hang your stockings inside the chimney where the toys would drop. Right. How would you drop toys from the chimney into the stockings? Doesn't make sense. And also, St. Nicholas was never known for throwing anything down the chimney. The sack of coins that he threw to the man was through a window. It specifically stated that and is drawn in images. Like the church was aware of that. So never was there any talk of St. Nicholas using the chimneys, right? Now, the big red Santa Claus suit, St. Nicholas was famous for wearing a red Catholic bishop's robes, right? Customarily red. And a red hat. But it didn't look like the Santa hat. It would be a bishop's like Catholic hat. So the red robes and Santa, St. Nicholas, those all check out. But the chimney, the stockings, the Christmas tree, presents underneath.
Why he has reindeer.
Why he has reindeer and goes by sleigh. Why he's magical. None of that is ever... I mean, St. Nicholas was magical, according, he was a healer. So maybe there's some truth there. But never rode by sleigh, right? Never went down chimneys, never used a chimney. Didn't even give gifts to people. He just gifted that one man money because he heard his prayer, right? So somewhere along the line, the Dutch started celebrating St. Nicholas's Day with these stories of him using chimneys and doing all these things that we know as Santa to do today. And like they get into really racist stuff too. St. Nicholas has I can talk about it because it's I mean, I'm not going to show pictures or nothing, but it's a helper that is called Black Peter. And it's usually depicted as a man like in blackface, which is horrible. I mean, obviously they don't keep these customs up anymore. But Black Peter ends up becoming what we know as Krampus today. If you guys know anything about Krampus, they shifted the narrative on that a little bit. Anyway, where did, in this 500-year period, right, did the Dutch start to acquire these stories of St. Nicholas using reindeer, going down chimneys, and all this crazy stuff, right? Well, we may have an idea for that. But I won't get to that yet. I want to get to Christmas itself because so far all I've talked about was Saturnalia, Cronia, St. Nicholas's Day. So far, 3 origins of Christmas, right? The Catholic Church in Rome, so the Roman Empire, or whatever, the Vatican, right? The Vatican and the Emperor of Rome at the time, Emperor Constantine, right? There were 2 powers in Rome. Emperor Constantine, the Emperor of Rome, and then Pope Julius I, the first pope. They were both in very high power positions of power, so they communicated...
Almost like governmental power. The other one was more religious power.
I know, but like they were still competing powers. Yeah. And oftentimes competing powers work together, right? So Pope Julius I and...
Competing powers work together.
Mm-hmm.
Like old...
Just like how we trade with China.
What's the Russian dude in Trump that were homies?
Putin?
Yeah.
Yeah, like...
Well, they were supposed to be, fighting against each other, and then supposedly he helped Trump win that election.
I mean, obviously those are just rumors and stuff, but... Anyway, the Pope and the Emperor made a few decisions all around the same time. And I learned about this recently. I knew that they made the decision about Christmas, but it wasn't until earlier today that I found out a very, very similar decision was made about Easter as well at the exact same time period. Mm-hmm. So kind of coincidentally crazy.
Yeah.
They came to this conclusion that they wanted to create some Christian holidays. There was a lot of pagan holidays and festivals at the time, and there wasn't any celebrating the teachings of Christ, which was still a very new subject matter. Like the Catholic Church had just been developed. This was 330 AD.
I would have made a new holiday instead of trying to rinse and repeat a pagan holiday into something good.
Well, they did create a new holiday, but then they just let me get to it. So this is around 330 something AD. So 330 years after Jesus' birth, 300 years after his death, they decided that they were going to create a few Christian holidays. They wanted to create a holiday celebrating the birth of Jesus, and they wanted to simultaneously create a holiday celebrating the resurrection and death of Jesus. So that's where Easter and Christmas come from. I'll get to Easter probably later in the podcast, but we're on Christmas right now. So there was lots of discussion on the date that Jesus' birth should be celebrated. There's a lot of very famous and political scholars in the Catholic Church and in other areas trying to come to agreement on what date should be labeled as the birth of Jesus Christ, right? There was talks about January. There was talks about June. There was talks about December. And they ended up coming to the conclusion that they're going to do it on December 25th, which was the Roman calendar, the Julian calendar winter solstice. Why? Their plan. Now, this part is up for opinion, okay? But this is what a lot of people online believe. A lot of scholars believe, but this is just scholarly opinions, right? Based on the evidence. The idea was that they wanted to get the minds off of these pagan. They saw these pagan holidays and said, these are heretics celebrating these festivals of sin, committing sinful acts, orgies, gluttony, etc., etc. They're doing paganistic rituals. So they wanted to kind of make them null and void, right? So what they did was, one, with conjunction with Emperor Constantine, they made the Saturnalia feast illegal. So it was illegal to have the outdoor feasts to celebrate Saturnalia. Then they made Christmas on the exact same time Saturnalia would be going on, and they took the customs of Saturnalia and absorbed them. The exchanging of gifts, and the feasts. So then they said, okay, feasts are allowed now, but they have to be indoors. But they made the outdoor Saturnalia feast illegal. Then they said, now this is Christmas, da-da-da-da-da. So they made Christmas, and they let St. Nicholas's Day kind of ride on. But about 100 or so years after Christmas was developed and it absorbed the Saturnalia traditions, eventually the Catholic Church decided to drop St. Nicholas's Day altogether as well and absorb its traditions into Christmas too. And that's where Santa Claus started being celebrated as Father Christmas.
Yeah.
Now we can get to where did Father Christmas, because that happened before the Dutch Christmas, okay? This was shortly after St. Nicholas's Day Christmas developed. And then 100 years or so after Christmas developed, they dropped St. Nicholas's Day and absorbed it, right? So then let's skip 100 years later, a couple hundred years later, Dutch Christmas, which still call it St. Nicholas's Day. They don't call it Christmas. But now they're celebrating it. And, we talked about it. They're doing stockings. They're saying that St. Nicholas did stockings. He went down chimneys. No, none of that's factual. So where are they getting these ideas? That's where we get to the Lapland shamans.
The rooftop boys.
Yeah, so Lapland is a area in northern Finland. It's east of Norway. It's very northern Finland. Okay, and their local animal there is caribou. You may know female caribou as reindeer. Right. Also, a natural growing thing there is a psychedelic mushroom known as the Amanita muscaria.
I've eaten it.
Now, if you guys are saying, what the hell is an Amanita muscaria? You've all seen one. every single one of you, I guarantee, unless you've lived under a rock, has seen in cartoons or video games.
Mario.
Exactly. The famous red and white one-up, or not one-up mushroom, but mega mushroom, right? That is based off the Amanita muscaria. So you've all seen the mushroom. It's in pop culture. The Amanita muscaria is local to the Lapland area, locale. And what you don't know is that they most commonly are grown under coniferous trees. Now,
Christmas trees.
Yeah, pine trees, spruce trees, conifers, all types of Christmas trees. Why? Because the conifer trees and the Amanita muscaria have a symbiotic relationship. Their fungal roots and their tree roots, they grow together, and the tree gives the Amanita muscaria nutrients, while the Amanita muscaria mushroom gives the tree carbon dioxide, which it needs. So it's a symbiotic relationship. Now, what do these little mushrooms look like under the pine trees? Well, they look like little shiny, wet and right Christmas presents underneath the tree, ready for you to pick up and take.
Shit, you got one right up there.
Yeah, I know. I know. When you hear what the shamans used to do and the how closely it relates to the Christmas traditions, you're going to start to question whether or not this is where the Dutch started to get their stories about St. Nicholas and
Dad,
Santa.
This one's for you, Dad.
By the way, St. Nicholas, slang term for St. Nicholas in Dutch is Sinterklaas. Say that really fast.
Sinterklaas.
Sinterklaas. That's where we get Santa Claus from. It's from the Dutch name for St. Nicholas, Sinterklaas.
Like, hell no, it's got too many. It's too long. We going Santa Claus.
So the Lapland shamans, okay?
Well, I look like Santa.
Shamans, as you guys know, are spiritual teachers, right? They started to notice that, by the way, everyone up in Lapland, right, the snow, it's near the North Pole, which also is another connection to Santa Claus, right?
They got a lot of snow.
He lives in the North Pole. Well, the Lapland shamans was the closest land to the North Pole you could possibly get. The North Pole's in the ocean. You can't get to the North Pole, but the closest land in the North Pole is one of the closest land masses is Lapland. And the shamans there, they noticed that their caribou that they used on sleigh to get around, because the snow would get 10 feet high. So high you couldn't use roads.
Or your front door.
Yeah, we'll get to that too. They would use caribou, reindeer, to pull themselves on sleigh around, and they noticed that their reindeer were obsessed with eating these mushrooms under the coniferous trees, under the Christmas trees. And when the caribou would eat them, either one of the things happened. They'd either get ill, or they'd start acting like they were having the time of their lives. They'd be running around, playing, and acting like they were flying, like they were on top of the world. So the shaman said, oh, wow, these mushrooms must have some kind of effect on the brain. So they'd eat them, and they'd start to, have these psychoactive trips.
Well, to get a very psychoactive trip, you have to do something like tea or something. You can't just eat it. It doesn't give you a very big trip if you eat it regular.
Oh, well, you have to dry it out first. But that's where they get to the hang. So the shamans, to dry out the mushrooms so they would trip, would tie the mushrooms to the end of the spruce trees that they plucked them off of. Look like little ornaments. Tie them like ornaments on the tree branches and let them dry in the wind. If you dry out the mushroom enough...
Oh my gosh. So if you dried it in front of the fireplace, what does it look like?
That's how they would do it in front of the fireplace. Yeah, no, that's where I'm getting. I'm getting to that too. I know you're just realizing it, but...
Yeah, that's crazy.
So the shamans noticed the reindeer loved these mushrooms. They'd eat them, and some of them would get ill. But,
because each person has their own limit that they can handle mana.
Before then, they would piss, right? And the reindeer would drink their piss, knock them over to drink their piss, because...
Reindeers will attack... Well, people think that they're attacking you, but they're literally just trying to eat the Amanita muscaria piss that's left over.
Yeah, because you can get the psychoactive effects without the toxins that way.
Technically, if I were to trip Amanita muscaria and then you drank my piss from it, you'll trip harder than I will.
Yeah, well, that's if you got sick and didn't get the tripping effect, right?
No, this is like a normal... I've heard stories of people who are trying to trip and are trip connoisseurs and shit, who will do that so that they trip harder. Me, I'm not. I ain't drinking piss for a trip. Nah.
But anyway, so these shamans, they wanted to share these spiritual gifts that the mushrooms provided to the local villages and stuff around them, right? So they would take sacks full of these mushrooms, and they would go buy reindeer and sleigh to other people's homes in order to provide them spiritual gifts. But like we talked about earlier, the snow would get up so high, 10 feet higher, et cetera, that your front doors would be blocked in, right? There would be no entrance except for the holes in the roofs that we now consider chimneys. Back then, they were air vents, like igloo vents and stuff like that, right? So they weren't always used as fireplace chimneys. So he could go down them without worrying about damaging himself, blah, blah, blah. They'd go down through these chutes in the top of the homes, like Santa down a chimney, and then give these little red and white mushrooms and sometimes non-physical gifts, like gifts of healing. They would help heal, or like gifts of advice and stuff like that.
That'd have to be someone you're like tight with for them to know your schedule, to know when it's safe for them to jump down the chimney, which could possibly just light them on fire,
They would provide these mushrooms for the housekeepers or whatever, and the housekeepers would in return give the shamans food. Cookies, treats, actual food, milk. And they'd give them the mushrooms. Now, they'd tell them, hey, if you want to experience, this psychedelic gift or whatever, you need to dry these mushrooms out. And they can't leave their front doors. Not everyone can. People who can might have tied them to trees like the shamans do to dry them, but they can't. So what they do, they put them in their socks and pin them above their fireplaces.
Why does that almost correlate to how, with people and tripping and psychedelics, usually there's always that person who's like, we can't go outside during this.
Yeah.
You think that has something to do with you being stuck indoors and tripping back then?
Like genetic. Well, I don't know. That wasn't that long ago.
Mushrooms have memories, so do we.
Maybe. I still think it's cool, though. And so, also, right, after they would use these socks, they put the mushrooms in the socks, pin them over their fireplace, dry them like that so they could eat them. When they were tripping, right, and they would be saying bye to the shamans, as the shamans would leave, if they could leave their homes or look out the rooftop holes, right, it would appear that the Santa Claus man or the shamans, which would wear burgundy, red furry, not as red as like the St. Nicholas.
Well, they didn't have dyes like that.
Right. It was more like a dark brown, red, burgundy, but it was said that the shamans would eat so many of these mushrooms that they'd start to look like the mushroom themselves, including their noses. Big red, cherry, like rosy red nose type, like you'd see Santa Claus. Red cheeks, puffy. The point is, though, the shamans would be leaving on reindeer, and these people would be tripping after having spent hours talking about life and stuff under the influence of these mushrooms. Santa Claus, or I shouldn't say Santa Claus, the Lapland shamans would appear they were flying away on the reindeer and sleigh. So a lot of people believe...
Well, if you're up there, the sky's just as white as the snow, so you really wouldn't have a line, to know where they're at on the sky or in the floating on the snow.
Okay, now between the Lapland shamans and the Dutch, there's one more other thing I didn't talk about. Saturnalia didn't die. It only got replaced by something known as Yule, right? You ever heard of talk about Yuletide?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, before I get into that, I do want to say all that stuff about the Lapland shamans, that is true. Now, whether that correlates to actual Santa Claus or not, that's up for debate, right? There's no pure evidence saying that is where the Dutch traditions came from, but the Lapland shamans did exist. They did eat the Amanita muscaria. They did travel by sleigh and reindeer. They did go down the roofs of people's homes and give them gifts of mushrooms. You know what I mean? Now, the drying the mushrooms in the stockings and on the trees, that was...
it all correlates.
Well, that stuff is implied.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. You know what I mean? There's no documents saying they did that, but it's like they gave these mushrooms that were wet.
Perfect fucking sense.
How would you dry them?
Yeah.
Right? So I just want to get that out of the way. Now, let's go to the Yule.
Oh, now that I think about it, even if you did hang them on the trees outside, that cold ass wind dries your lips.
That's what I'm saying.
Out.
Yeah, it would dry the mushrooms out.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be in the ground in the snow.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Yule. Saturnalia, right? Tried to get its traditions did get absorbed by Christmas and the Catholic Church, and Saint Nicholas Day eventually merged with Christmas as well, way later on. But for a while, Saint Nicholas Day was still going strong, especially in the Dutch. Sinterklaas and stuff. That's where we get a lot of our Santa Claus traditions. At this time, with St. Nicholas Day, Santa Claus was still not a Christmas figure, but the feasts were, the Christmas tree was, the mistletoe, which were all Saturnalia pagan symbols. Saturnalia didn't die, even though Christmas absorbed its traditions. It ended up becoming Yule, which is still a pagan tradition celebrated today during the winter solstice, which is also around Christmas time. Yule is Norse pagan, which is like, I think still, is that part of the Romans, Odin and all that, the Roman paganism, Norse paganism?
No, Norse is Vikings.
But that's Odin and Thor and stuff like that, Norse. So what's Saturn, Jupiter? That's Roman paganism? Okay. Anyway, Yule.
Easy way to think about that is the original 3 God of War games.
Right.
Were the one that you're just
Greek mythology.
about. And then the newest one switched over to Norse mythology.
When was Roman, though?
I thought that's what the original 3 were.
Greek. They were Greek mythology.
And then it went over to Norse mythology on the new 2 games.
And that's Viking stuff, though, not Roman. So it never was Roman. Unless we're confusing. Like I said, I don't know too much about paganism.
No, I know for a fact Norse is Viking shit. I know that because my mom's boyfriend.
But is it also the Roman stuff?
By the way, guys, if you listen to our podcast, you'll get smart. See what I did there? He didn't even laugh. He hates me.
Sorry, when I'm deep in like reading text and stuff, like my mind is just solely focused on that.
When we're not shooting the podcast, they lock me up in the basement, y'all.
No, okay, so it's different. Norse paganism is like a form of Germanic paganism. So between the Dutch version of St. Nicholas' Day and the original St. Nicholas' Day, which is where the Lapland shaman stuff started to happen, was going on Yule, right? Saturnalia didn't die, it transferred. Which I guess I shouldn't say that because Roman paganism, I guess, is completely different from Norse paganism. But anyway, the pagan traditions, I should say, did not die with Saturnalia. They continued in Norse paganism.
Who's to say that they're even that much different versions of paganism? Because they all came from one place over in Israel. It's where all the paganism shit started with Cain and Abel and all that. Yeah. So it all came from one place. So I'm not even sure that they're hugely different.
That's true.
Even their gods line up, now that I'm thinking about it, you know.
A lot of them do, yeah. But I mean, a lot of religions' gods line up. Think about our Trinity, the Christian Trinity, and then think about the Hindu Trinity. You know what I mean? But Yule's going on. That's where a lot of our current tradition, the Christmas elves. That's Norse paganism. That's in the Yule. Santa's helper elves or whatever. And the mistletoe.
That low key sounds like Santa Claus was stealing kids to me. Think about it. He's got an army of small little people to work for him.
The mistletoe was Norse paganistic. The Yule, they're all symbols. And it all occurs during the winter solstice because pagans are all about positions of the earth and the sun. Yule was first written by a monk named Bede, who also wrote about the origins of Easter. In fact, the only known origins we know about Easter are from Bede. Bede marked a note about Yule, which is where Yule came from, which are when the days start to increase after the winter solstice over a 2-month period.
Oh, like the daylight savings shit.
During Yule, they would specifically feast and decorate trees, hang mistletoes, and do a lot of the other Christmas things that we know today.
The mistletoe almost reminds me of like some fertility shit.
There was a king who was pagan and he celebrated the Yule, right? When he became Christian, he absorbed a lot of the Yule's traditions into Christmas and started celebrating those over, like, he would do a lot of the Yule traditions and festivals over Christmas when he transferred to Christianity. So that's where we got a lot of the Christmas Yuletide traditions from, because of this transfer, right? If that makes sense. I'm talking about Christmas so much, my brain's starting to get scrambled. We're almost done with the origins of Christmas, guys. I know it's been a long, crazy ride, but I want to get to the finish line real quick. We're almost there.
We need a Christmas counter at one end and then a Cremdis counter. So each time you say Christmas, it goes up a number. Every time I go Cremdis, it goes up a number.
By 336 AD, Emperor Constantine established that December 25th would be the date to celebrate Christ's birth. And I already talked about this. It was so they could absorb the Saturnalia traditions, and that was before Yule. A lot of the Dutch traditions is where we get our, Krampus, Santa Claus. They're the ones who put the stockings and stuff. That could have been from Lapland shamans. All right, where we're at. We're here to our final images of Santa and how it came to the United States and how it eventually stuck with Christmas. Like I said, at some point in the 600s or 700s, I think, they dropped St. Nicholas Day and just completely absorbed it into Christmas. I think the Dutch might still call it St. Nicholas's Day, but no one else does.
Well, unless you hear someone say jolly old St. Nick, you don't really hear that here.
I shouldn't say no one else does. I think Germany does too, call it St. Nicholas Day or something like that. But the point is, a lot of us know it is Christmas, right? Santa Claus, Christmas. A man who was very into the Dutch version of Christmas was a British man, though, but identified as Dutch. He came to America, lived in New York. He was really, really upset about the urban development in the city. It was wiping down trees and landmarks, nature. Yeah. It even destroyed his home. They destroyed his home to put a highway down, and like the bank foreclosed on him or something. I don't know. It was a bunch of bullshit.
Most man-made lakes used to have towns. You know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Like if any man-made lake, any large man-made lake in America, they literally would foreclose everybody's houses. Most places, they don't even bulldoze it. There's places in Kentucky Lake where you can go scuba diving and swim inside of a fully built house that's still under there.
That's awesome. But
yeah, until you see how big catfish grow.
This guy I was talking about, though, his name was Clement Moore. I'm almost done, sorry. His name was Clement Moore. He moved to New York in the 1800s. Super into the Dutch Christmas, right?
That's a fucked name, Clement.
They tore down his home, and he was very upset, and was so upset, but also inspired by Dutch Christmas, he wanted to bring some goodness to everyone. So he wanted to do something good. I don't know exactly why, but he ended up writing the poem A Night Before Christmas. And all that stuff in that Night Before Christmas comes from like Dutch ideas of Christmas, and it's where we got our final ideas of Santa Claus. What about our final images, what he looks like? That's from the Coca-Cola company, surprisingly. The Coca-Cola company drew images of Santa, fat, jolly, red nose, red cheeks with a big red suit, the hat.
Yeah.
The image, what we see of Santa, is from Coke. But our ideas of Santa Claus...
Just the same way that they make us think that polar bears are all cute and cuddly.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though they only eat meat.
So there you guys go. The very long and very confusing origin of Christmas and Santa Claus, which has nothing to do with the birth of Jesus Christ.
Sinterklaas.
It has to do with pagan holidays and traditions, the Catholic Church wanting to take the eyes and the knowledge of those traditions away, so they absorb them into their own Christian holidays.
Why am I already hype about doing Halloween next year? A Halloween podcast and talk about all this shit. Because that one's going to get wild.
Yeah. So, since we're done with the origin of Christmas, like I said, Saint Nicholas, the Lapland shamans, Yule, Cronia, Saturnalia, all origins of Christmas, and it's all because the Emperor Constantine in Rome and Pope Julius I came to the conclusion, like, hey, we're going to make these pagan traditions illegal, and we're going to adapt them into our Christian religions. Not religions, our Christian holidays. Celebrations. So
that's so weird.
And it worked, because look.
Yeah, I know it worked, but
nobody knows about Saturnalia. Nobody knows about Cronia. We're all celebrating Christmas and doing the same shit.
It reminds me of how they change terms over time so that you have a hard time looking it up. Walt Disney being frozen and under the Disney castle. Now you go type in Disney Frozen, all that shows up is the movie.
Yeah.
I was trying to find that thing about the stars earlier, and when I typed in Disney stars, all that shows up is Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they're making it their own, so that way they're muddling up the history of it and making it harder. Oh, we've always done Christmases. Christmas has always been about Santa Claus.
9 times out of 10, they do that same shit. Working every day, bitch, I'm working for the weekend.
When we get back, I'll go briefly over Easter, because it's the same story, but Easter has a very, very much more obscure and hard to find history than Christmas. Christmas, you find so many articles, peer-reviewed journals about the origins, and like I said, it all has to do with pagan traditions and holidays, St. Nicholas's Day, and then the Catholic Church saying, we're going to make 2 holidays about Jesus, and we're going to absorb pagan traditions into those holidays and make the pagan holidays illegal. And then eventually they just combined St. Nicholas Day with Christmas too.
Listen to the whole podcast or Krampus is coming for your ass.
We'll be right back after these commercial breaks. Skiddy. Well, thanks for rejoining us after that short commercial break. We just talked about the origins of Christmas. I might have rambled a little bit on certain parts.
You went ham on that.
Thanks, I appreciate it. I did my best. And like I said, guys, I got all that information from verified and peer-reviewed sources. I'll list some of them in the description. Let's talk about Easter real quick. I thought, okay, if this is how it is with Christmas, there's got to be something with Easter too. What does bunny rabbits, eggs, etc.?
Dude, I've had so many hours in different churches, but someone at some point, that was the lady at that church who was like, I know that you're attracted to darkness, but don't lose track of the light. And bro, that plays in my head at my darkest moments. The Easter, that name comes from Esther.
That's what they tell you, but Esther has nothing to do with the Passover, which is what
Christmas doesn't have nothing to do with Jesus. Just saying.
Why would they randomly name it after Esther?
They're very similar words.
At least nothing I researched led me to those conclusions.
What was weird about the Esther book in the Bible? That almost didn't make it or something?
Oh, I don't remember.
Oh, I feel like that's what it is. It almost didn't make it into the Bible. I don't know who got to choose what made it into the Bible or not, but I'd like to give them
the Roman Catholic
nice talking to.
The Roman Catholic Church. But I don't know who revised the Christian book, right? Because the Catholic Bible now has 73 books, and the Christian book has 66.
They writing extra books or what?
The Catholic Bible, I think, was the original Bible, 73 books in it. And then somewhere...
real Christians were like, I don't know about that book.
Well, real Christians, I'm pretty sure what we consider Christians and not Catholics became later, right? I think originally it was Judaism and Catholicism, or not really Catholicism. Catholics were considered Christians. So the Christian religion was Catholic. What we know as Christians were originally, part of the Catholic Church, I believe. I could be wrong with that. I've done my research on that. But eventually, a new type of Christian came along, and all these different sects Christianity, like Pentecostal and
Non-denominational.
Speaking of the holidays, I was going over Easter. I thought that if Christmas was crazy like that, had weird origins, maybe Easter had weird origins. Turns out there's very little about the origins of Easter, right? It used to be called, at least the Easter we celebrate now, right? The resurrection of Jesus, what we believe it to be. That was originally called the Pascha, which was the Jewish version of the Passover, celebrating.
Pashka markers.
What's that? There you go, again, dropping the 2 words of mystery.
They're paint markers, but their specialty is like you could draw a big ass black square in Sharpie. They're Pashka markers. They pass right over everything, and it leaves that color behind.
They pass over. That's
What
cool.
the fuck?
That's
What the fuck, dude?
cool. Oh man, you figure out little things like that. It's awesome.
Look at the smile on my face. It's fucking clearly is good to learn.
But yeah, so
That's crazy, dog.
we don't really know where Easter, the word, came from, but we do have writings from Bede, a Christian monk, from around the year 400 AD, so 400 years after the birth of Jesus. He was the one who told us about the Yule, right? About the pagan version of Christmas, where he thinks that Christmas might have got its origins from, or some of its traditions, which was...
we got to refer to this guy as Big Beezy from now on.
He was apparently a pretty cool dude, but he also wrote about this village he was staying in, and he said, I didn't do too much research on it, but the point is, the only information we know about Easter is what we know from Bede, and it was a short little few sentences, and it was something like, they've named a month after what I believe to be their goddess of fertility, Eostre.
What's up with all the fertility cult weirdness?
Well, think about the fertility symbols in Easter, okay? Bunny rabbits, which are obviously very fertile. Yeah, they make lots of babies, very fertile. And literally
pull out
eggs. Literally eggs.
Yeah.
Which are babies, right? Signs of fertility, eggs and
that doesn't
bunnies.
Make any sense why you would look a little kid in the face and be like, nah, those eggs came from that bunny.
Yeah, bunnies don't lay eggs. Bunnies don't...
And they're telling you that at that crucial period of learning.
They aren't associated with eggs at all. Now, some may argue that the eggs do have religious ties with Passover, because if you look at images of the Passover supper, and there's certain evidence that points to they may have been eating hard-boiled eggs or some form of eggs at the Passover supper. But the bunnies have nothing to do with the Passover or the Christian faith at all. It's never in the Bible about bunnies relating to Jesus or the Passover, right? So where did the Osterhare come from, the Easter hare? We don't know. The Germans were the first ones that started talking about it, and guess what they're famous for? Germanic, paganistic rituals and practices, right? The Germans were very famous for being pagan.
Germanic runes, by the way, people, are what our language is mainly based off of. That's where we get a lot of our letters and stuff from.
The term grammar, or the word grammar, comes from the word grimoire, right? Which means spells and incantations, book of spells and incantations, something like that. So whoever made the word grammar based it off of the word grimoire, saying that our words, our English letters and words, are a form of spell or incantation. Which is why people believe that words do have power. So you should be careful what you say and who do you say them to.
Or what you're listening to.
That too, exactly. What you're taking in your ear holes and into your big old brain.
Bro, I went through a point in my life where all I listened to for like a whole year and a half straight was just garbage trash metal and the fucking Suicide Boys. Where they talk about in every song. If you listen to them in interviews, they're like, no, we're telling you how bad drugs are. We're telling you how uncool it is and how you'll get lost in it. And then they're like, Papa Percocet, motherfucker, get the set going. And I'm like, you're clearly like praising it right here, but then saying you're against it. They do have some songs, don't get me wrong, that are good songs, but a lot of it's just trash in one ear, trash out.
Let me try and find what Bede said about Easter because I know I butchered it, and I know I can just pull it up on screen, and we haven't done that in the podcast yet.
Big Beezy.
So let me just. Yeah, okay, all of this was from a book he wrote. Right here. Eostermonth has a name which is now translated Paschal month. So this was the name of the certain month that, and which was once called after a goddess of theirs, Eostre, in whose honor feasts were celebrated in that month. Now they designated the Paschal season by her name, calling the joys of the new rite by the time-honored name of the old observance. It says, note by the old observance being is presumably referring to the ancient Teutonic spring celebrations.
Teutonic. How's that spelled?
Teuton.
Okay.
Anyway, so that's the quote in our possible origins of Easter. He's saying that they had a goddess of theirs named Eostre, which is a pagan goddess. So, quite possibly pagan roots with the whole bunny rabbit and the painting of the eggs and the fertility symbols, etc., etc. But we don't quite know for sure. But it's very possible, especially due to the fact that the decision to change the name from Paschal to Easter occurred around the exact same time that Saturnalia was made illegal and its traditions were absorbed into Christmas. So, very, very strange.
If you ask me, that sounds like an agenda to swap them pagan days into shit that regular people worship.
But that's all I'm going to talk about on the holidays. Just remember when you're, in your home and you're talking about Santa Claus, singing songs about him, or you're celebrating Jesus, do you ever ask yourself why? Why am I putting coal in stockings? Why do we decorate a tree?
Oh shit, putting coal in the stockings. If you're stuck in your house and you can't get out, what helps start a fire?
Yeah. Well, the coals if you're bad too, but
I know they say that, but they also don't say that it was mushrooms and not stockings that were hanging up in front of the fireplace. That's why I'm just thinking two and two together. If he's dropping off shit that you need because you can't leave your house, it makes sense that he put, something with coal to give to you so you can start your fires and shit and keep warm.
yeah, and I heard that too before that like a lot of people thought like, oh well, coal used to be the gift that Santa gave to poor people because they needed it to, stoke their fires and their furnaces and stuff. And it's like I don't think that came from any evidence. It's just people making assumptions, but
Gotta help me, boys. 1,000 likes and they'll let me out of the basement in between podcasts. Oh shit, he's back.
what are we about to talk about?
Fucking giants, salt deposits, mountain ranges. This was a topic that I've been researching a little bit that I thought was kind of cool to talk about and see what you think about my theories.
Do I believe in giants? Yes, I absolutely do because I believe in most of the Bible.
Every fucking religion talks about it.
Actually, I don't think
not every religion, but a lot of them.
I don't think there's anything in the Bible that I disbelieve. I think some things in the Bible I take non-literally or have different interpretations of than other people. Yeah. So it's not that I don't think the Bible is wrong in some areas. I think it's that people interpret it wrong.
If you're looking at it by the Cabal, everything has a third meaning, so you might be right and they might be right.
Yeah, exactly.
I still don't trust them.
And I don't know if you're saying that right in the Cabal. I don't know if that's like a name of their book or whatever.
It's Jewish mysticism.
Kabbalism. Or Kabbalism, or whatever you want to say, but just the Cabal, like you're shortening it.
That's just how I say it. I don't know.
I don't know what that means at all, so I don't know. You could be saying
It's
like
the group of you Kabbalists.
you could be saying like a cuss word in like Judaism or something.
I'll be all right. He'd be like, "You've been cussing in Jewish," and I'll be like, "I don't speak Jewish, dog. Sorry,
Hebrew,
bro.
the
Look,
language.
I'm telling you, when I get to that gate and I finally meet God, I'm gonna talk. People in line behind me are gonna be like, "Get the fuck out, go! Just fucking go, dude. Come on."
You're gonna be showing him your cool tech deck
got...
moves.
He's already seen them, dog. I am pretty good with that tech deck. I rode a human with the tech deck.
So tell us about giants.
Okay, boys.
Nephilim.
I'm gonna do the Curtis Connors clap. Boys.
First, you need to explain to people what Nephilim are, in case they don't know.
Nephilim, first off. God made angels. God made us. We both have free will. So, at some point, angels turned away from God.
When the devil led them away.
Yeah. Well, they still had their own freedom of choice.
I know, but I'm saying like when the devil rejected God
Is
and
when
fell from
they-
heaven,
yeah.
he took a third of the angels with him, but it was on their own free will. They chose to go with him.
So, as these spirits or angels, whatever, however you want to say it, some of these ones that turned evil ended up realizing that God holds humans, one of his creations, very highly. And if they were to fuck with that gene pool, they're messing up one of God's, amazing things that he created.
Also, they just lusted, right? They lusted after man.
They hadn't seen human titties before. And they came down and were like, damn!
But like, yeah, he's absolutely right. Fallen angels had sex with humans. It's part of the Bible. And they gave birth, the humans gave birth to Nephilim. Deformed babies that became giants.
There's this album by The Plot in You that's called Would You Watch Your Children Burn? And I assumed because the picture on the front of it is a Bible that is on fire. I assumed that this whole album was something bad at first. But the more and more I listened to this album and listen to the stuff that he's saying, he's basically talking about America and how we are. And if we don't change our ways, we will end up watching our children burn because we'll be in the same place, hell, as them.
Here's a National Geographic article about giants and a Roman giant found.
Yeah. They found them all through Iraq whenever we were in the war out there. There's all kind of our military who came back and talked about them finding giants that were redheaded and had multiple rows of teeth and were huge and shit.
You always they find these femur bones that are
half as tall as us,
3 to 4 feet tall, which would make the person 15 to 20 feet tall or some crazy shit, like the 2-story tall person.
Yeah.
So in the Bible, when they talk about David and Goliath, right? These are true Goliaths. He was a Nephilim.
Oh, he was he took on basically an army by himself until the kid came out and decided to try to fight him. Literally, he was just tearing people apart.
So I do know about Nephilim, but what's the recent news? Because I know you said there's some new shit.
So, I brought up Skull Island earlier.
Okay.
You always see stuff like this in mountains that look like skulls, or if you look at certain mountain ranges, it'll look like a person laying down, and you can see where their head, their shoulder, where the hips are, and everything.
Yeah.
Funny thing, I actually found a place on Elden Ring where literally poking out of the side of a mountain is a giant skeleton. You know how big the giants are in the game, right?
Yeah.
Quadruple that. This thing was gigantic. So, certain people believe that, yeah, okay. So, now go look up what a Himalayan salt mine looks like. This is inside of a mountain, by the way. What does that look like to you? You ever seen a steak before it's cooked?
Yeah.
Does that not look like meat?
Yeah.
Where there's the fat in between it, does that not look like bone inside of the meat?
Yeah.
Or tendons that would connect meat to
Yeah,
bone?
right here for sure. It does look
These are
like
all inside mountain ranges, which people believe, could be these giants that
here.
died.
I'll show.
Which all of these salt mines, even, well, white salt doesn't come from salt mines, it comes from the ocean.
Here's the image.
So these salt mines, if you look at it, these up here look like chunks. Oh shit. Look like chunks of meat up top. It's even got the
Yeah.
marbling like a steak does, right?
Yeah.
Right here looks exactly like bone or a tendon that would connect bone to the meat.
Yeah, if you look at like the whole picture, like all the way down here, like how it's coming off the bone like that, it looks like a hunk of
Like how ribs connect to the bones and shit.
or like a fucking tomahawk steak or some shit like that, right?
So normal salt we get from the ocean. Pink Himalayan salt we get from mountain ranges. So I kind of got into this idea that these mountain ranges that have these, Himalayan salt deposits are just petrified meat to a certain point. And I have another bit of a theory that'll connect this because I know right now it sounds a little iffy. But if you think about it, what do humans use to preserve meat?
Salt. Well, they used to. I know that was one of the things we used to use.
Well, yeah, but that's one of the main things. You use it to make beef jerky, which if you dry out beef jerky enough, almost becomes petrified meat. Like if you kept letting it dry out, it turns petrified like that and it would break apart and crumble.
I like this theory a lot. Couldn't someone just like go there and like take a rock and examine it though and say, there's no like biological DNA in this rock or something?
Don't know. Or actually, if what were the Titans? Were they like nothing?
Well, no, you mean in mythology?
Yeah.
Gaia was like an earth thing itself, right? Gaia was like a mass of earth itself, right? Mother Nature.
Uh-huh.
Kronos was like a giant rock, right?
These giants, though, that ended up turning into these mountain ranges.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Okay.
So, when was a point in time where there would be enough salt on Earth to petrify a gigantic human?
Biblical times. Immediately, I think of
motherfucking flood.
The flood. Okay, because the
That's
ocean.
So much ocean water.
That's true. Yeah.
At that much ocean water, salt deposits at the bottom of it.
I immediately was thinking of Sodom and Gomorrah, pillars of salt, for some reason.
Ooh, I didn't even.
But you're right. The ocean water very salty.
If something is at the bottom of it and they get killed and buried by all this water, which would have been the giants, they would have gotten wiped out by the flood. So there's enough water on Earth for these giant salt deposits to have enough salt to where your body will not deteriorate. If you take a fish and you completely encapsulate it in salt, it'll just keep drying it out. It will never rot inside of there because it keeps drying itself out and it petrifies inside of it. So in my theory, the exact time that the giants were killed off by the flood is the time that we have enough salt to petrify giants. This is my theory. I'm only half a week into research.
Wait, but were the giants killed off by the flood? I thought God sent his soldiers to wipe out the Nephilim villages. Weren't the Nephilim post-flood? Or were they pre-flood?
I think that's pre-flood. Because that's part of the reason he wiped out everybody is to get that gene pool gone, Now, I think that there was other ways that gene was introduced back to human people.
Sons of God, distinct from those who went to the daughters of humans before the flood, went to the daughters of humans born after the flood. So the angels just continued to, the fallen angels just still
procreated afterwards.
Yeah, they still mated with humans after the flood. So he wiped off the first generation of Nephilim, but they just made more generations of Nephilim.
So do you think that the giantism changed after that? And that's why we have, these huge giant beings, but now there's also like a version of them where it's just like people that are 15 foot tall instead of mountain range tall.
Maybe.
I don't know. I'm just riffing.
I think the Nephilim. But then you're implying that they're still demon hybrid people today, and I don't want to think that. I want to think that the Nephilim have been completely wiped out.
Bro, you ever listen to oh, what the fuck was his name? The Knight Rider. I don't know. I think there's still people with that demon gene in them.
You think so?
Uh-huh. That's why I think that there's people that are easier to possess than other people. You get what I'm saying? Like, if your bloodline was intertwined with that way back down the line, it makes sense that you would be one of the people now that's easier to get to be like possessed and shit. Makes sense?
Yeah.
I don't know either. This is all speculation coming from me.
If we could talk to Kim, she would be able to tell us if the Nephilim were completely wiped out or if the Bible said that they were just supposed to be. Because I believe I remember post-flood Nephilim, God sent soldiers to wipe out their village, the women, the children, everything.
The Canaanites and shit. Whenever we kept going to battle with them, because
the Canaanites weren't all Nephilim.
I know they weren't, but that bloodline was intertwined with theirs. And that's why they kept trying to exterminate the Canaanites, I thought.
I don't know. See, like I said, I'm not an expert on this stuff.
We'll get there. We'll be experts one day. Well, I'm for real, though. I'm going to be an expert on this shit one day. I already know more than Pastor Rames. Fuck you, by the way.
So what should we talk about next?
I don't know. What do you think of my theory, though?
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I like it. And there's other weird things. I don't remember what it's called, but have you seen what is believed to be possibly an old fossilized tree stump that's like huge?
Oh, the devil's...
Yes, something. Yes.
Yeah, it's exactly. Petrified wood.
Right. Well, they believe it to be now, right? There's no proof of it.
Bro, my eyes see what they see. That shit looks like petrified wood.
Giant.
It's the devil's something.
Fossilized
tree
stump.
Devil's Tower Rock.
They're saying it's not a tree now. It's a .com, not a .org though.
No, I was pointing at the picture.
Yeah, but I'm saying these articles are saying that it's not a tree stump.
Of course they're going to say it's not a giant tree stump.
They were saying it, they thought it was at first.
But at one point before sin, weren't we connected to heaven? Until the trees of life were cut?
No, are you talking about the Garden of Eden?
Yeah.
You think the Garden of Eden was connected to heaven? I've never heard that theory before.
We could exist with God there.
Yeah, but it was on Earth.
Heaven on Earth.
Dude, oh man. I didn't want to get into religious topics, bro. I told you that before, but have I ever told you about what the crap, I almost said the H word, but this is inappropriate in this scenario. What the crap is going on with is it the Ark of the Covenant? Is that the box? Have I ever told you what that was?
Nah.
Oh my goodness, dude.
I just remember if you touched that shit, you died.
Yes. There's a reason for that. Bro. Okay, yes, technically it was a box that held stuff, but that was far, far from the point.
Truth, yeah.
From the point.
Yeah.
It was true, but I
knew there was something else up with it. I've heard the stories and shit.
Bro, I watched like a full hour. Sorry.
So is that just like a theory that they put like religious like artifacts and shit in there?
No, there was some. It was believed that that's where they kept the original tablets that held the Ten Commandments, including the cracked one that Moses threw on the ground. And they think maybe something else, possibly, but for sure the Ten Commandments were probably in there, and possibly other stuff. That's not the point, though. That that was just a small little like detail. Okay, it's kind of like when you have when you buy a little footrest and you can open up the footrest and it stores stuff in it. Who cares? That's not why you got it. You got it for a footrest, right? That's just a little extra.
Yeah.
Um,
They had the poles on it to carry it
because they couldn't touch it. Yeah, and only a specific tribe of Hebrew were allowed to carry it on the poles too.
Huh.
Yeah, only certain priests and stuff.
Oh, write this down. What are the specialties of the 12 tribes? We started to research this shit back before, we never finished. So we can research that for like another
What was
podcast.
it again?
What the 12 tribes, like what their powers and specialties, because it tells how they all differ. But I remember when we looked it up back in the day, we couldn't figure out what any of the powers meant.
I mean, God did say, I give you all the stars and the moons and the signs in the universe, or all the stars and the moon as signs in the universe, or something like that.
That's why I think that with all the weird shit going on with the sky, it like uses that as like a warning to watch near at the end of times, that the sky and shit.
Oh, what do you want me to Google? Because I have to tell you
the
about
Last Supper.
I have to tell you about the Ark of the Covenant, dude. It will blow your freaking mind. You want Leonardo's? Is this Leonardo's?
Yes. You can go to that one. It's just an enhanced version of it. They like updated the colors. So you're talking about these extra meanings and shit within all these Bible stuffs.
Yeah, so
look at the doorways.
Okay.
Look at the squares on the roof. Look at the shapes right here. That's that fucking the rectangle within the rectangle, the golden ratio.
Yeah.
That's what those break down into. These 12 disciples, if you put the 12 zodiac signs down the body and it goes along with your chakra points, you ever seen people do that?
With the zodiac signs? No, I haven't actually.
They compare the zodiac signs to your body. So, okay. I don't remember. Cancer. He's holding both.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay.
Well, Scorpio's the punk ass one because they're kind of like snitches and shit, right? This dude right here is trying to tell Jesus that Virgo is not a man. That is a woman that was one of the disciples. And then I'd have to show you a video on it. But
hold on, if you count, there's 13 people here because of this.
Jesus is in the middle.
14, sorry. Because this person right here, I believe, is Mary Magdalene, which is not technically a disciple. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
12. That's 12 of them. That's 6, one of the 7, disciples.
8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so that's a dude then, technically.
No. Well, from what I researched, that's why Virgo is a woman. That's why that is the only one of them that is a woman in the signs.
So what? There was 12 disciples. They were all men, though, weren't they? Mary Magdalene, which is not the prostitute, by the way, that everyone thought. She wasn't.
I'm just going off like the video that I saw that put all this stuff together.
Oh no, I know what you're trying to say. They're all representing zodiac signs, and they also all are representing musical notes too. I've seen a video about that too. There's like
the way that their heads are.
No,
it's their heads and their hands.
There's multiple meanings.
Yeah.
To this image, but it's because
if you put where their heads line up and where their hands line up on a musical scale, it's notes.
Yeah, that's what it is, right? So, but that's because this was created by Leonardo da Vinci.
Who was a scientist, a musician.
He was a mathematician, and he was super into sacred geometry. He was an artist and a musician. He was a genius. So he put multiple meanings and a lot of effort into this great piece of work right here.
Hold on. Let me look this up real quick.
I still need to tell you about the Ark of the Covenant.
Okay.
We're going to go through, because this has been...
Yeah. This is weird then.
All right, here. This one is what?
Aries.
Okay.
Next one, Taurus.
Got you.
Next one. Gemini.
Oh,
the two
twins.
Yeah. That's why he's holding his hands up like that.
But technically Gemini is the Roman numeral 2.
Well, yeah, but it's still 2.
Yeah.
The next one is Cancer.
The arm or this person?
This person. Cancer. Look at his hand. Claw hand.
Okay, this guy. Then the Whisperer.
Leo.
Okay. The next one.
Virgo, which is the woman. It's weird how that lines up, right?
So is there a disciple missing? Is Judas not in here?
That is all the disciples. He's trying to show us something.
Dude, I'm telling you though that
I know what it says.
Who's supposed to be the disciple next to Jesus then?
I don't think we actually know.
Who's the disciple to the left of Jesus, Last Supper? Peter. Here we go. From left to right, it goes Bartholomew, James, the lesser, Andrew. That's Peter, the one whispering. Judas Iscariot.
He's the one snitching.
Judas Iscariot. Judas Iscariot is the one with the knife in his hand. Look. So that's Judas, the one with the knife. So the one before Judas was Peter. Peter, Judas. That's John. And then Thomas and all the rest of them.
Think of it like, have you ever seen anything to do with like the Newsboys back in the day? New York?
Tell me though, why have I never heard of Bartholomew the disciple? Have you?
Yeah.
I've never heard of Bart the disciple, bro. What, have you guys ever heard the Gospels of Bart? Bartholomew, Jesus' favorite disciple?
Like, get them books out of
I have never heard.
We're not putting Barty's books in
I've never heard of Bartholomew.
I have, but it's rare. I don't remember anything about him. But do you see what I'm saying, though? How they line up with the people?
Yeah, I know. Let's go back to the...
That is the only one on there that looks feminine now. The one.
You're right. Virgo. And the Da Vinci Code, whoever wrote about the Da Vinci Code, he believes that this was a secret message from Leonardo da Vinci.
It is.
Trying to tell us that isn't...
it's his wife.
Yeah, so that wouldn't be a disciple, like I said. It was him replacing a disciple with Mary Magdalene, who he was trying to tell us he believed Jesus had a baby with.
Now, just as a
which
theory,
is a Gnostic belief.
Have you seen anything about like the Newsboys back in New York back in the day?
No.
Newsies?
No, I don't know about.
Okay, you could only be a boy to do this job, to deliver newspapers back then. So little girls would put their hair up in a hat like that and dress like the little boys so that they could make money doing that. So if it's shunned for one of your followers to be a woman or something back then, I could see them hiding the fact that one of them is a woman. Back then, actually, yeah, that would make sense. If one of your followers was a woman, once a month you have to kick that woman out of town because she's on her period and she can't be on the town around you guys while she's on that shit.
Here's the thing. Why couldn't there have been 13 disciples?
They don't say there is.
Well, does Jesus ever say that there was only 12 disciples, or is that just...
He called me one time and said, only 12, cuz.
I think we only just count 12. I don't think there ever is a point in the Bible. I need to research that, so this isn't
so if
verified.
A woman was one of their followers, they would kind of shun her and not put her in that.
The Catholic churches, or the old-timey Catholic churches, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. And now it'll be debated like, oh, no, she was never considered. But Mary Magdalene, who we're talking about, which is not to be confused with Mary the prostitute, right? There was 3 Marys. Mary the mother, the virgin, gave birth to Jesus. There was Mary the prostitute, and then there was Mary Magdalene, which was a follower of Jesus and the disciples. Pretty much seemed like she was a disciple, but they never included her as the 13th disciple.
Wasn't she the one who cleaned his feet before any of them did?
It was either her or the prostitute that did that. I think, no. He cleaned a prostitute's feet named Mary.
Yeah, but he mentioned the fact that before any of his people...
Oh, no, she was the first one at the tomb. The very, very first one at the tomb when he rose from the dead.
But part of that story with the washing of the feet is because none of his own disciples were willing to do that for him. And she went out of her way to do that for him. Was one of kind of the little messages in there.
She washed his feet with her tears.
Magdalene?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
and wiped it with her hair. That's weird, dude. I'm not trying to be.
Hey, give me them toes, boy.
If I was,
They stunk so bad that it made her cry.
if I was Jesus, I'd be like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
I don't do foot stuff, bro.
Like I'm Christian and I love God, but that is very weird. Like crying onto someone's foot and then using your hair to wipe the dirt off their feet. What
Bro.
in the world? I gotta tell you about the freaking Ark of the Covenant now, okay? We're gonna have to look up some stuff.
Okay.
So in Revelations, there is a detailed description about the throne that God sits on in the heavenly realms. Do you know about that?
I don't remember much. It's weird that we have different expertises of the same book. You know what I'm saying? It's such a big fucking book. It's not even that big, but there's so much in it that we have developed our own areas of expertise inside of it.
Oh, okay. There's also a description of it in Isaiah 6. There's a description of it in Revelations and in Isaiah 6.
So do you think that this thing's up in the Vatican?
What? Like a replica of it?
Or it itself?
What, the Ark of the Covenant?
Yeah.
Why? I'm not looking
Or
that
like
up.
Moses' staff? No, I'm just saying, like, I know they hide, like, people have said that they hide these religious, the scarf that Jesus had that has the imprint of him.
It's not a scarf. It was his burial shroud.
The linens.
Yeah.
I know.
The shroud of
I know
Turin.
I said scarf, but
yeah, it's the shroud of Turin. But all right, I don't know why I can't find accurate depictions of it.
I know why you can't find it. It's because they make this shit purposefully hard to find.
That's what I had a feeling of. It's almost like a stool. Okay, you think of it like a big chair, right? But it looks like a box. Okay, it's like a stool, and it's golden. Okay, and it's got certain specific like dimensions to it, and it's got certain symbols on it, etc. Right? And one specific thing that it has is God has two cherubim on each side of him, guarding him in his throne. Okay, or I think it's cherubim. It's the highest hierarchy of angels you can be. It's the ones that literally sit on God's side and throne. Okay. Now you look at the Ark of the Covenant. God gave specific instructions to the creators of the exact dimensions and everything that had to be done.
And all that.
And it had to be pure gold, and it had to be a specific ratio, et cetera, a specific weight. And one specific detail he added is they needed to carve in the gold on top of it two cherubim angels that guarded it. Now, you take accurate pictures of the throne of God that God sits on in heaven, and then you look at images of the Ark of the Covenant, and they're identical.
It literally looks like the box
where
you can open the top. You know what I'm saying? Like one of those Schiffer robes that you were just talking about. It looks like the top opens on it.
Exactly. Okay, so look. Here's the Ark of the Covenant, and look at the top of it.
Two angels.
Two cherubim.
We saw this shit at fucking Triple T, bro. The tabernacle. Do you not remember that? When they brought that fucking giant tabernacle there and we got to go inside of it, that thing was in there with the two angels on it. It literally was that one. Yeah.
It's for sale.
Hey, buy it, dog. Don't touch it, though.
Right here.
Yeah.
So
that's literally the exact same thing that we saw inside the tabernacle when they had it here.
Here's the dimensions. Okay. Now, when the prophet John describes God's throne in Revelations, and when they describe God's throne in Isaiah, it's the exact same description as the Ark of the Covenant, right? And then you start looking at every time something amazing happened in the Bible when the Ark of the Covenant was in there, okay? Before Jesus Christ, because the Ark of the Covenant was used in the Old Testament, Before Jesus Christ, no miracles could be performed
Yep.
on earth by man, right? So when
Because we were missing the Spirit.
Exactly, we didn't have the Holy Spirit within us, and Jesus wasn't there to give it to us or even teach us.
Yep, he wasn't there to show us yet.
But like I said, what was in the Ark of the Covenant wasn't really what's important.
Well, yeah, but
it was an earth.
Like, I know that it's Moses' staff itself had no power to it, but I get why they would keep that item around. You know what I'm saying?
The Ark of the Covenant was an earthly seat for God to move from the earth, the heavenly realm, and sit down on a throne in the earthly realm. It was a.
Was this in the tabernacle in the room that humans can't go in because they would die?
Yeah. Also, God could enter that room, right? That's where they would communicate with God. In that room, he would sit on the Ark of the Covenant in the tabernacle and communicate with man.
Pretty sure that much power and electricity in one place would probably fry most humans.
That's why you couldn't wear your shoes too, because you had to be one with the energy to communicate with God, and you know what I mean. It was holy.
Yeah,
but
you had to take off your shoes there too.
Yeah.
Grounding.
You couldn't go into the tabernacle unless you took your shoes off.
It's got to be one with that energy flow.
The Triple T is like a reenactment of the rituals of the tabernacle. We're like going through what they would do to communicate directly. This is how they communicated with.
And stupid, and I didn't listen back then though.
This is how they communicated with God before Jesus Christ was a thing. Because, like I was saying, Jesus Christ is not God the Son. You hear about the Trinity of God, right? What God is, he's three things: God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. All together, he makes God. Well, I used to think that Jesus Christ, his Son, was what they meant when they said God the Son. Jesus Christ was actually all three. He was the Trinity itself, but in the flesh. God manifested himself as a human. Mm-hmm. Kind of like duplicated himself or cloned himself, if you want to think of it that way. But it's not really like a clone. God needed to do two things. One, become more human to understand how we work, because even though he created us, giving us a free will, we kind of became a thing of our own, right? And that's why in like the Old Testament, it's believed he was more of an angry God, because he didn't,
that boy was wilding out back
he
then.
couldn't relate to humans. He was like an angry father, so he would punish us when we did wrong, but he would give us fair chances. He was a fair God always, and a loving God, but he was more strict. And it wasn't until he understood and gave us the love of Jesus and understood
until he knew what it was like to be human.
Not only that, but it was a triple meaning type thing, right? He did multiple things. He gave us the power of eternal life through the Holy Spirit via the transference of his blood, which was the earthly version of God's Holy Spirit in heaven. Which that's a deeper theory of mine I can get into later. But he also taught the disciples the Christian way. That's where a lot of our Christian religions come from, is the teachings of Jesus through the disciples.
I can't believe how they got hunted down afterwards. None of them had a good death.
Jesus was the true teacher, and that's why he was the Messiah, because he taught us, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Listen to what I say, and you will get to my Father, God in heaven, right? But when Jesus was resurrected, he said, I will send you a helper, right? I'm going away for a while, but I will return someday. Until then, I will send you a helper. That helper was the Holy Spirit. That's why he had to give his blood. It's a direct transference.
And that's why we can work miracles, is because we have that.
Uh-huh. And that's mainly, though, the true importance of that is now heaven is accessible to us. Or not even,
Yeah, before then you went to the void.
The holding cell is what they called it in the Bible, which was technically, according to the Bible, within the core of Earth, inside Earth itself. And according to the Bible, there are still demons and monsters in the holding cell. Not humans, but those waiting for hell are also in there. So Hitler and whoever else you want to think of who might be going to hell.
I told you I was looking into Agartha and Hollow Earth shit. But it's okay. In movies, in all Hollywood, when they show this the Hollow Earth theory shit. Uh, um, 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 Cloverfield. What's that about?
It's been so long since I've seen it, but Cloverfield is about.
CERN opens a portal at the very bottom of the ocean,
So it's like BP oil spill.
but demons start coming out.
Yeah, South Park BP oil spill
Uh,
episode.
There's all kind of movies about them going caving, and then them breaking down a wall to keep going, and then they run into monsters down in there.
I mean, Doom is about them accidentally opening a portal to hell on Mars, and then deciding to mine its resources.
So,
they're like, "Hey, we accidentally figured out how to get to hell."
Hold on. You remember how I said earlier that people think that humans were from Mars?
Yeah.
So, I don't know where I'm going with that, I guess. No, but the whole demons on Mars thing, if we're from there and we ended up here, well, like some of them would be trapped in that dimension, planet, whatever the hell you want to call it, type shit.
Is that not crazy to you, though? So think about sorry, I know I'm jumping back, but
no, you're good.
We always get off topic a little bit. The Ark of the Covenant, it's exact same description, and it looks exactly like what has been described as the throne of God in heaven. And
that was the only place he could come down to earth in the tabernacle.
Mm-hmm. And every time a miracle was happened, the Ark of the Covenant was present. The walls of Jericho, what did they do? They marched around it 7 times for 7 days, or whatever that number was, right?
7, it is.
Yeah, and guess what they had with them the whole time? The Ark of the Covenant. God was with them. That's why the walls came down. Do you remember what
happened when somebody stole it for a while?
No, I don't remember.
They couldn't even get all the way back home because they all got hemorrhoids and shit so bad. And you can't bounce up and down on a horse if you have hemorrhoids and shit. It would be excruciating pain. And they had to stop in the desert before they even got home. And were like, take this shit back. Like, get this away from us.
So there's this whole argument about, this is what atheists and agnostics ask Christians and people who believe in God. Because you don't have to be a Christian to believe in God. You could be Buddhist. You could be... Although, do Buddhists believe in a God? I don't believe in Buddha, but Buddha was just a master. I don't think they do.
Buddha ascended to God status. He didn't start as a god, but through all of his works, he ascended himself to God status.
I'm saying, do they believe in like a God that's created everything, like a first God?
That I don't know.
Because even polytheism, people who believe in multiple gods, they can still believe that it started from one, right? Because where did those gods come from?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, polytheism's kind of correct. It says in the Bible not to worship the other gods.
Yeah. Well,
which means there's other lowercase gods, but there's still other possibly crazy powerful beings out there.
Right. Well, but that's the thing, though, is that the term God has has no known origin. I got into etymology for a while, and
I like etymology too.
Yeah, hell yeah. I got into etymology for a while, and I started to research the origin of the term or word God, because I was like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
No known origin. Nobody knows. It's kind of like Easter. We're not sure, even though Easter has some clue.
So at some point it went from Elohim to just God.
Well, our God has a name. Yahweh, the Christian God, or the name that God revealed to Moses on the mountain, right?
Where does Elohim come from?
That's another name for God. I just don't remember where it comes from. But
I love that term, though. I don't know.
I'm saying, there's multiple different people who believe, there's my God separate from the Christian God.
Elohim. That sounds like it almost sounds like a Muslim word. By the way, now that I'm thinking of it, that's the same area.
By the way, they don't call him Yahweh anymore. They call him Yahshua.
Yeshua.
Or Yeshua.
Yeshua.
I think they just are trying to discover, because like I said,
They're trying to figure out the actual name.
Yeah, because one of the greatest mysteries of the Bible, which I've always talked about,
The song of God's name.
I like the way you put that, bro. I've never heard it put that way before. You always have a way of like using your intuition to let the angels or virtues give you the gifts of ideas and knowledge. I'm using those weird terms just now because I've recently learned the 9 classifications of angels, and
Bro, I feel like I used to close myself off to this shit. Like when I say something like that and it's almost like the words don't come from me, I used to not be open to that. But I know I have a seal and I know like evil shit can try to fuck with me, but they really don't have any sort of power over me.
yeah,
I think that's why I kind of want to get into. I wish there was an easy way to for me to study demonology without having to sift through so much evil shit.
like
Bro, I love the weird questions, but man, when it comes to the whole Hollywood and like what they do with kids and shit, man, I had to stop researching that for a little bit. I was cluttering up my mind with too much junk, I feel like.
dude, I told you I was researching it so much that I started to feel like things were following me, and I started to
Ooh.
get like really. That's when the mirror thing happened.
Way back?
Yeah, that's when the mirror thing happened, where I was researching that shit for a long period of time. I was like getting into creepy videos and like trying to find images and stuff in the background. And
Why
like,
was it in the mirror?
what?
Why was it in the mirror?
Because yokai, or that's the Japanese version of enchantress demons, right? Demons that lure you. They like to reside within hollow spaces or alternate dimensions, right?
A mirror's a portal.
Mirrors, lanterns, hollow trees, things like that. That they
Oh, because the hollow tree doesn't have a spirit anymore.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
already dead.
Right. It's a hollow shell that they can enter, and the mirror is a reverse dimension, right?
Portal.
It's it's a portal to another dimension.
How you always see on movies, ghosts and shit talk to you through mirrors.
I'm getting a little drunk, guys. This is what always happens near the end of the podcast. We have a lost episode too, by the way.
The lost episode.
This is technically episode 3. It'll be titled episode 2 on the channel, but technically this is episode 3. And if you've gotten this far, guys, we love you so much, and thank you for listening. You probably haven't gotten this far.
If you have got this far, type Big Pimpin' in the chat.
Oh yeah,
anybody the comments.
Anybody types Big Pimpin' in the chat, then
we'll know you're day one homie.
I'll do something special for you. I don't know what it is yet, but first person that types Big Pimpin' in the chat that isn't like a family member,
huh? We'll pin it to the top.
We'll pin it. Yeah, we'll pin it. Any stranger, non-family member, non-friend or supporter like that.
I can't wait till we have some fans, right? When people actually get conversating in the chats, and then we can go through all these comments and be like, holy shit, this dude's onto something, pin that.
Yeah, and by the way, guys, we want you to comment. We want the haters to comment. We want the lovers to comment. Like, we don't care if you hate us, love us, have a weird side opinion.
If you think I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. Just don't be a dickhead about it.
Right. Like, so the guy who commented in the first video, he was kind of being an asshole, but he's open for his opinion.
Bro, he was using that snide, I'm sitting behind my keyboard and they can't do nothing to me. I'm gonna talk some shit.
But guess what? I said I'm open for those kind of comments.
We love you, Todd.
Yeah. So if you want to be an asshole, that's fine. But just know that the internet will see everything you type, and that we are just two normal guys who are passionate about these subjects. We are no professionals. We never claim to be. We're doing this for fun. We like to open our minds and talk about these subjects and think about things.
To learn.
Please like and subscribe to our channel if you feel the same, right? And this is not a religious channel. We've been talking about religion a lot the past 45 minutes or so. I know, guys. So if you've listened this far, you're probably kind of like us, religious, but still curse.
Bro, we're going to touch every topic because come. Come Halloween next year, we're going to be researching that heavy, So we're going to get off on other topics. Eventually I would like to have a whole podcast that's about serial killers and what goes on in their minds.
I think it has to do with demons now, because I've recently learned about. So before, I thought that fallen angels, aka demons, were like maybe a handful, couple hundred. I recently learned that they're probably more like the thousands to 10,000s. When they say an army in heaven, they mean a war. When they say a war in heaven, they mean a war. These are armies, thousands of angels and fallen angels. So
a third of God's army.
Yeah, according to biblical texts, when the devil fell from heaven, a third of the angels followed him.
That's a lot.
It says he took, but the angels had free will. So what that really means is he convinced, right? He persuaded. Uh-huh. They heard his testimony. They heard his plea. They said, "We agree."
I mean, if they have free will. So I think that there's angels that were already thinking on that train of thought and just not acting on it until someone broke that path.
I feel like that has to be true. Yeah, first. I feel like that has to be true for them to immediately be like, a third of them be like, "Yeah,"
because no one's up there singing and worshiping, and it's like, you know what? Let's go do some evil shit on earth, y'all.
Which goes to my original theory that, which I haven't even, I know why I said that. You guys have never heard this, but I had this theory a long time ago that evil comes from the division of God. That's very cool. Sorry, if you guys are listening, he did a very cool thing. I wasn't talking about the division of God. That's not cool. Well, God's plan is. Never mind. Ignore me. My original theory was I was wondering, where does evil come from, right? The devil, God is perfect. We've known that, or at least we're told that. So if God is so perfect, why is there the devil? Why is there evil, right? I've always wondered that. Well,
it's like everything encapsulated, right?
It's through the division, right? When God was one pure thing, before he started creating, right,
before he created the 12 zodiacs.
Before he created the heavens and the earth. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. What about before the beginning, right? There's always a before the beginning, before the idea, before the invention, right? Beginning is when it starts, but there's always a time period before anything starts. And it could be an eternity, which is hard to comprehend. But the point is that before God created the heavens and the earth, he was just God. There was no angels. There was no heavenly realms. There was no earthly realms. There was just God. And we don't even know if there was a Trinity. It might have just been one pure spirit.
I think it was. It didn't need the defined feminine at first.
It wasn't feminine or masculine. Those definitions are defined when they're created, just like light and dark, right? Well, darkness only existed when light was created, and that's because of a division, right? Before light and dark, it was one thing. And then one was created, which made a division and created another. So my theory is that is where evil stemmed. If God was perfect and always was, which I believe, right? It was when he started creating the heavenly realms and the earthly realms and dividing himself. Specifically, the very first step was amongst...
Jesus would have to be hella separate from him to be tempted.
Was Jesus tempted? I mean, literally...
Throw yourself off this cliff and have God save you.
So, sorry. The devil tempted him, but was Jesus tempted by the devil, is my question. He wasn't, though, right? He cast the devil away. He didn't break his fast. So was he really tempted? The devil tempted him, or attempted to tempt him.
I think he was human just like all of us. So it probably sounded good to him, but he was like, fuck that. I know what I stand by.
He wasn't...
I stand on business.
That's where he was human, but he wasn't human. He was God controlling a human body, if that makes sense.
Yes and no.
It doesn't make sense? God if God is pure energy,
Uh-huh.
which is just an idea for this analogy or description I'm about to give. If God was pure energy and he needed to become a human, so he, with all his almighty power, took some of his energy, swirled it around, and made that little bit of his own pure energy into a human. And that human was Jesus.
Yeah, but I feel like he had to take part of himself out of that equation for Jesus to do his thing and free us.
No, I think it was more like a copy. Like he copied his own consciousness and existence, like a shadow clone jutsu.
Created in his own image.
And put it into a randomized human body. I thought for a while that maybe we could start to identify what the true face of God looked like by looking at Jesus, because I think he looked like Mary, but he did not look like his father Joseph at all.
Uh-huh.
So it's like, well, what man did he look like?
That's why everybody in the village was like, yo, is that his kid? Is that his kid? And if he would have said no, they could have stoned her and the kid to death. But because he claimed Jesus and her, they weren't stoned to death.
So that begs the question, though. Did Jesus' face resemble half of God's DNA?
I think so.
Can we? Because they do say when you look at heavenly depictions, or like the oldest depictions of. Hold on, let me finish. The oldest depictions of Jesus, that you are close to divinity. They say when you look at the images and drawings of Jesus,
it helps you ascend.
Yes.
Yeah.
You become closer and closer to divinity by like fractions of percentages. Like,
whoa. So if you're saying by us looking at that picture of the Last Supper, we're getting closer to God.
Yes.
Because we're learning God's math. We're learning about the zodiacs. We're learning about music. We're learning about waves.
You're looking at divine images that represent God.
Yeah.
And so looking at so what happens when people in the Bible look at the face of God? It's so overwhelming to their brain, they die.
Oh my, well, fucking Moses couldn't even look at it. Moses was hidden behind rocks. And when he came down from the mountain, his skin was still glowing.
So think about how powerful God's face is.
Yeah.
Right? We can't even look at it in real life in this dimensional universe without dying.
Because it would fucking give us so much insight, we'd fucking die on the spot like Bloodborne.
So if that's how powerful his real life face is, don't you think that pictures or images of his likeness would,
if they're
be
actually
powerful?
Of his likeness?
Well, Jesus Christ.
Do you think that current images we're looking at of Jesus are of actually Jesus? Because I don't. Jesus was not a white man.
They don't depict him as a white man.
Huh?
They don't depict.
Go look up pictures of Jesus.
You're thinking of New Age pictures.
That's what I was saying. That's what
no,
I said.
No. I'm talking about
saying newer pictures. I was asking the question, do you think that the newer images that we see are actually of Jesus?
Not the newest ones, no.
Like the ones that you see at church and shit.
No.
White Jesus hanging up
No.
cross.
But if you look at the oldest pictures of Jesus, he's dark.
Yeah.
And he's kind of gross looking.
Yeah, caveman looking.
Yeah. And like apparently he had like.
Jesus, I didn't mean to.
And apparently, like his hair was like very matted and dreaded.
Yeah.
Like he had like dreads.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Like Samson, don't cut your dreads, or you lose your power.
Yeah, he was Middle Eastern looking.
Nappy headed. Yeah.
And they even said that he was not the most attractive man. But you got to think about it too. We are all humans, all of us, are made in God's image. Which means literally we're special and unique, unlike the angels, because the angels are very weird looking, right?
Yeah.
We look more like God than the angels do. Think about that. Humans look more like God than the angels do.
We're his chosen people.
So God...
The angels weren't his chosen people. They're there to follow his commands.
So when people draw God as like a big dude with a white beard in the sky or something like that, And people think that's crazy, blah, blah, blah. They're drawing God as human. He wouldn't be human. Yeah, he's not human, but apparently...
He made us in his image.
Yeah, apparently he looks human-ish.
So he doesn't look like the fucking angels or anything. He looks like us.
Right, and the angels look crazy.
Yeah, they look Cthulhu.
Most of them, not all of them. Some of them actually... And maybe
Gabriel looked like a human, didn't he?
They can take human forms.
Shapeshifters.
Yes. They take human forms.
Ah.
But some of the angels actually just do look human. If that makes sense. And like that's just their regular form. But a lot of them, the weird ones, right? The lower the angels go, it seems, the more humanish they look. But the higher up archangels, like the ones that like...
Gabriel could change. Never mind.
Yeah.
Because he showed him in that form so that he didn't scare the shit out of Joseph, right? And Mary? That's why he showed up looking like a human so that he didn't scare the
No. He wasn't human looking. That's why he specifically told Joseph, do not be afraid.
So then he showed up to Mary as a human.
Maybe. Maybe. I just know that when he showed up to Joseph, he said, do not be afraid, because Joseph was looking at some crazy fucking creature with wings and eyes and flames, and the angels were crazy looking, dude. And
so that's why demons are so fucking crazy looking.
Mm-hmm. Except some of them look like humans.
Yeah.
Because, so, we won't get in too much to the classifications of angels.
Well, they're shapeshifters. Okay. We're just talking shapeshifters. I know this branches off to a bit of a different topic. I watched something about like demonic shit in sports. And they were talking about Jordan. And whenever they refer to the fact that you're doing this demon shit for power, they kept referring to them as robots, like how you were saying, it's something for them to control here, but they talked about Jordan and how he played like a normal regular ass dude, and then he sacrificed his dad, and then after that is when he just took off and fucking took over the whole NBA. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And then another one, they were talking about Larry Bird and how he was like a regular dude. He would not get into any of that because he's Christian. He's from Indiana, nice little homeboy, homegrown, and wasn't into any of that demon shit. And then one of the years, you know how much money gets traded around after each one of these games and shit, right?
Yeah.
All these people betting on it. So people have to be trying to influence what actually happens, or there's a script. You know what I'm saying? He won one of these, not the Super Bowl, but you know what I'm talking about, the basketball Super Bowl.
Yeah.
He had won one of these things after they told him not to, that he was supposed to lose, but he just was so naturally good that he won. And then they made him pick a person to sacrifice, which was his dad.
This is the theory.
Yeah. I've seen some weird fucking clips too with the NBA. Like, bro, there's old clips of Jordan too, where like I was talking about the shape-shifting thing, where running up the court dribbling and this part of his arm extends farther than humanly possible to grip the ball.
I just imagined Michael Jordan's fucking arm going alien status.
Bro, Space Jam. What is Space Jam about? They're putting alien demons in basketball players to make them better.
I can't wait to talk about... That'll be for another episode.
Does that not weirdly like correlate?
This will be a whole other episode, but I can't wait to talk about the idea of like simulation theory, and if the idea that imaginations and cartoons, do they exist? Are they real? Right? What do you think about that? We won't get too much into it, but
yes, because of one story, I slightly believe that you can push yourself to them being real. The dude who did Who Framed Roger Rabbit, the guy who played the cop in it, because he spent so fucking long imagining these characters in his head, after they were done shooting the movie, he couldn't turn it off anymore. And it drove him fucking nuts. I'm pretty sure he ended up himself.
That's crazy.
Heath Ledger. He said he summoned something whenever he would turn into the. I'm getting cold chills right now talking about it. He said he would summon something whenever he would pretend to be the Joker. That he humanly was not that evil. So he had to take that on to act that way. And then after that movie, he could not turn it off. And that thing stayed with him and he killed himself because of it.
So it was like we talked about earlier how when you get these ideas, like a lot of musicians and artists, when they get their ideas. Hold on. We'll stop right there.
This has been episode 2, you fucking nerds. OFP out.
Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Peace.